In today's video, we're going to talk about how Mike pulled 7 deals out of his dead leads. Like, these are people he'd given up on, like literally just casted them aside, had all of his like little excuses for why it wouldn't pan out. I know a lot of you guys are doing this same thing. Mike Dehaan, who's joining us today, just started doing direct-to-seller marketing this year, has already added 20 units to his portfolio and closed 13 wholesale deals, making him $190,000. I really can't think of a better reason to tell you to watch this video.
What's up, Bree? What's up, Keith?
Oh, this is for YouTube, not TikTok. I'm sorry.
We had a ton of leads that we, I guess a few that were active. We had quite a few that we had sort of pushed off to the side or sort of done like long-term follow-up. I mean, I don't know, with a lot of these, we had gone and, been talking to a few of them for months, touched base with them 15, 16 times, probably sent more mail than all that sort of stuff. I mean, kind of the same conversation that everyone gets, when people are not too sure, they don't necessarily trust you, is, I'll think about it, or, not quite ready yet, whatever. And then what the main turning point for us was we brought someone on who fully dedicated their time to building and networking and building rapport with these people. So, we hired our first acquisitions manager, and I mean, lo and behold, you have somebody that truly is comfortable sort of having those tough conversations and figuring out what people want. And the next thing you know, she has 7 deals in her first 2 weeks working with us. Yeah, and this is somebody with no real estate experience, just a people person who just knows how to talk to people and find out what they want. And, for us as, real estate investors, having to juggle like rehabs and rentals and everything else, we just didn't give the time that was necessary to nurture those leads. So by hiring someone, that we pay well to do that full time, that made all the difference. And it just sort of showed how necessary it is to, I guess, like commit that much time, even though you get told no over and over and over again.
Yeah, I tell a lot of real estate investors that like the marketing, the branding, the like running appointments, that's kind of like the sexy part, but that's not really where you make your money. It's that like following up with somebody for the 17th time in the CRM that has told you no 6 times, one more time, that's where you actually make your money.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because like we went through and looked at like sort of when a lot of the leads came in and when we stopped talking to them, like our last point of contact. And usually that was like 60 to 70 days. So we talked to them for a while and then basically given up on a lot of these leads, these deals that we got in the previous months. But there was quite a few that we hadn't talked to for 90 days at that point that she went in and had locked up like that next week.
Wow.
So it kind of makes you wonder if we kept going 3 months ago, if we would have locked them up as well. But also too, something that was kind of interesting about it is just like a different style of personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leading the conversations, because quite a few of the deals that we got were more, I guess, more sensitive people. And
They didn't want you just to like steamroll them.
yeah, and me and my business partner, we're two younger dudes. Like, he's ex-military. We're both in reasonable shape. So like for us to go and talk to a seller who has just experienced some kind of abuse, like female with like this is a specific example, is a female with a daughter whose husband was now in jail because of a whole abuse sort of situation. And this was like a slam dunk deal. And we're like, there's no way we're not getting this contract. And sure enough, we couldn't pin her down. She ghosted us. There was all this sort of
Poor
stuff.
choice of words, but continue.
Yeah, but yeah, true, very poor choice of words. But yeah, we just couldn't get it signed, right? And our acquisitions manager, being a younger female, same age, like the rapport building there is going to be so much better. So she literally went and knocked on this lead's door because she wouldn't answer our calls and got a contract signed 15 minutes later.
That's awesome. So,
And she knew that she worked with us. It was just a different individual.
So this girl you hired, I mean, she can come work for me. I'll pay her more than you're paying her. Sounds like an absolute killer. I mean, going to door knock people because they're not picking up your calls. Maybe 0.1% of real estate investors would follow up with a deal that hard. And I mean, I'm sure like most of us, you'd kind of, I mean, you mentioned some of these had sat 90 days. I mean, you're kind of like, yeah, there's not really anything there at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And pretty much all of these we had marked dead. So that was one of the first things that we did when we brought her in was we basically just went through, and every conversation that we had had that hadn't been like a flat no, even if we had marked them dead, or even they told us absolutely not, we had her go in and follow up with all of them. And it was a pretty vast list by the time we revived it. I think at that point we had 25 like active leads in our CRM. By the time that we went and pulled all of the quote unquote dead leads out, we were up to like over 100.
Okay.
And so she followed up with all those and was able to grab 7 leads out of that. Basically almost all of them were dead at that point. So
pardon this interruption. A couple people have told us down in the comments that I talk too much with my hands, but if you're enjoying this video, please like as well as subscribe. We're putting a ton of effort into this channel and would love your help in helping it take off. Back to where we were. Devil's advocate here, something somebody noticing might point out. You'd had all these leads that were dead, so it kind of sounds to me like you hired her at a point in the business when stuff was slow. Is that accurate?
That's super accurate. And that was one of the things that was kind of weird about the process. Was our main focus was how do we generate more leads when we've kind of hit all the lists, because all we have is all these dead leads, right? And then we were like, well, maybe it's just a conversion problem, and we wanted to make sure that before we spent a bunch more money on marketing, we had somebody coming in who was hopefully going to convert better than us.
Beautiful.
So our intention was for her to basically spend the first month sort of getting prepped with our processes, and then we start bringing in new lead sheets, start hitting those. And it was beyond our wildest expectation. She took all of our old ones that we'd already paid good money to get, and she was able to, grab a ton of stuff from that for a great first month.
I mean, I think to your credit, a lot of people in your position would have been like, well, I can't afford to hire somebody because I don't have leads coming in, or there's not cash coming into the business. Mm-hmm. And I think you made the wise decision of, well, there's not deals coming into the business, so we really can't afford not to hire somebody for this role.
Totally. And it's funny, it's easy to think that, but like if you look at the cost of staff versus like marketing, especially with the way these gigs work, it's a commission-based structure, right? So it's not inherently expensive to bring somebody on. I mean, our base pay for her is just $2,000, and then she gets a commission based on the deals. We don't do a draw structure like I know is common. We do a straight commission off the profitability of the deal. And we found that with her, and we found that she actually has some family background in real estate with her brother. So she kind of was more privy to how much money was being made, so we didn't feel the need to sort of like shelter it, right? Anyway, so if you look at it, right, our worst case scenario, if she gets no deals, we're paying her $2,000 a month. And plus taxes, which is fine. But if you look at like all of our other expenses, it's really a small line item. Yeah. We spent, like, it's funny, that same week that we were interviewing her and we were talking, having the exact conversation, we went and we spent $5,000 on new appliances. I didn't think twice about it. And we're like, well, that's way more expensive than the $2,000 a month. And the ROI on these appliances is significantly lower than if she comes.
I want to poke a little bit of fun at people watching this, because I think investors do the same thing with marketing of like, they'll pay a wholesaler a $20,000 assignment fee and not even blink because the deal makes sense. But you talk about, hey, go drop $5,000 on marketing, and they're like, whoa, slow down. So,
yeah, right.
How'd you find this girl?
So yeah, we just posted online. We used Wise Hire because it had that, what's the personality test?
Like the disc profile integration.
Yeah,
that's what
exactly.
We use to hire as well as Wise Hire.
Yeah, and that was beneficial to us because we originally, poked around our inner circle a little bit and got some resumes, and we kind of realized we don't really know what you're looking for, especially for this job. It's unique, and you let people know that you're in your circle that you're looking for like a sales sort of person. Everyone like refers like their son or like their neighbor's brother or whatever, you know. And then you get their resumes and you're like, well, I don't know, he worked in an electronics store. Like, is that good? Like, I don't know.
Best Buy to real estate.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so we posted on there, and we got a ton of candidates through it. And one of the reasons she stuck out to us was her disc profile matched ours like excellent rating, right? Like everything was maxed out.
Cool.
And it was interesting because it had that, but her resume was, I don't want to say poor, it was just sparse, right?
Okay.
You know, so like her background was, she's a military wife, has traveled most of her adult life with her husband. And her work experience mainly was like, she had a short stint at Mars Candy doing sales roles there. And then besides that, it was like as like a bartender and a waitress, and she operated a kettle corn stand at a farmer's market, right? So it was, you know, interesting. But
That
then
wouldn't
like her,
be, I think a lot of people wouldn't even look at that. They would just like, not qualified enough.
totally. And but then like, you know, after looking at it and looking at some of our other leads, we're like, she's going to be a people person. You know, she's going to know how to talk to a wide range of people, especially working as a bartender, right? You're going to get a mixed class there for sure. And I mean,
I
to
feel
be
like
honest, a
half
lot,
my sellers are drunk. So
yeah, like, honestly though, right? Like a lot of sellers fall into the bar regular sort of, you know, group, right? So, and we had her, and then we had a few other candidates that were like legit sales background, resumes checked all the boxes. So, you know, we set up interviews with all those people and then brought her in because she was just kind of like our dark horse, because like we only had like maybe 5 that were excellent disc ratings, and she was one of them. So we basically just interviewed all those people. And yeah, then after our initial Zoom interviews, it was funny because we had like 2 real bad ones right off the start. Within 5 minutes, we knew they were going to be a no. And then we had her, and we were like, well, she was awesome, but was she awesome because of the other ones being terrible? And then the other 2 were fine. So we had in-person interviews with the other ones. And then after the in-person talks with everybody, she just like, I don't know, was a people person. She was easy to talk to. She was extremely friendly. And the other 2 like sales guys, it just, we just, how we had the conversation was we actually imagined them talking to that seller that I mentioned earlier,
okay.
the mother with the child. And we're like, what would those 2 guys do in that situation with her? They wouldn't get the deal either.
Yeah.
Right. So, but this, you know, this girl, she probably would, like, we can see that happening. And so kind of our thought process was, if there needs to be like a man's man sort of negotiation, I mean, we're not exiting from the business. We can still have those conversations. And in fact, we've gotten a deal that way with a guy that refused to, just disliked women, refused to talk to her. So I went and got the contract instead, and that's fine. But then now the more sensitive people, where we're not going to be as kind and understanding, she just goes and gets those and does a much better job than we will.
That's awesome.
So
I think a lot of investors are hesitant to hire female acquisitions managers because they think like, yeah, I don't know, like it's not going to go well or something. But if there's anything I learned from back when I was in call centers, is guys like to talk to girls and girls like to talk to girls. So that is kind of like an advantage for situations like that. But it sounds like what really clicked with you guys with her was that she really was just a people person. It wasn't that like used car salesman, swarmy, sell me this pen BS. It was much more like she was easy to talk to and get along with, even though she didn't really have the experience. Is that correct?
absolutely, yeah. And that's really one of the reasons she's been so successful as well, is when she goes and meets with people, her goal is always to figure out their problem, you know, as opposed to focus on the house. Which, I mean, if you look at like big picture, that's why we're getting contracts, you know, because
Yeah.
when we would go, we're interested in the asset. Like, we're both being my business partner, we're engineers by degree, you know, that was what we went to school for. So we look at numbers, we look at like the structure, we look at whatever. And she's more like, who is this person? Why are they calling us? What are they looking for? And so she's the perfect balance there. And not only does she do that, but like that's just sort of naturally how she is. right? So it's a very easy for her to bridge that gap. And she's one of those people that you kind of feel comfortable confiding in. So she finds out all the dirty details about people, that we would never find out, right, or be privy to at all. And she's able to build those connections a lot better than we ever would.
So, kind of in closing here, what advice do you have for somebody that's in the position you are at? Like they've got some leads, they've got a lot of dead leads, but they're not really getting deals. So what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that you need to be realistic about the time that you need to spend to be pursuing those. And if it's time that you're not willing to spend or not able to spend for whatever reason, find someone to do it for you, right? And pay them to do it, pay them well. And people always worry about having to miss out on commissions or like their own fees or whatever, but the return on it is 10x, if it comes out. So sorry, my phone's ringing there. You can cut that out.
No, you're good. We'll
Yeah.
leave it in so people know you're real.
Yeah, right.
So there was a guy who I won't name because I don't know if he follows me or not. That was like had an acquisitions guy, and they were like hemorrhaging cash on marketing. We're talking $10,000-$20,000 a month, and he was like, "Dude, I can't figure out what's going on." And I had one conversation with his acquisitions guy, and I was like, "Bro, your acquisitions guy like creeps me out.
Yeah.
Like just makes me uncomfortable." And I think one thing you kind of mentioned that I want to make sure people get is you guys are both engineers by trade that are looking at this from like the, how can we purchase this property? This is what we want to do with it. And less from like the human side of it of how did this person end up in this situation? What does it mean? What is it, what does this feel like for them? So I think if you're somebody like me or like you that we're not necessarily the most empathic people in the world, and we're maybe not the most like touchy feely either, it's probably a good idea to hire somebody customer facing that legitimately cares about your customers that they're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. You want to find someone that's your opposite, so if you're also somebody that's super empathetic, right, you might want somebody that's a little
You
bit
need a
more.
closer.
You do, yeah. You'll need a closer, right? If you're getting too emotional on it, to come and really drive it home. So yeah, I think that's really, especially as a small business, having that balance on all sides of the human spectrum. I mean, because you know how it is with off-market stuff. The house is obviously part of it, but it's a people business.
Mhm.
It's a solutions business. And if you're doing well, like the best deals that you get are the ones where you know
Get to know them the most.
you get to know them, right? And you have that mutual trust and you solve their problem. Those would be the easiest closings. Like those would be the easiest ones to sell, right? It's just the way
I,
the
I get a
business works.
kick out of like all the new real estate investing like tools. Like don't get me wrong, but it's like people are looking for like almost like the Tinder of real estate investing, like sell to me or don't sell to me. And it'll never exist because this is a people to people like business. Like a buddy of mine out in Oregon calls it porch time. Like they want to get to know you. They want to understand what you're going to do with the house. They want you to get to know them and feel like you actually care about them before they're just going to like, hand you the keys or sign on the contract. Mike, I super appreciate you being willing to do this. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't like to admit that they'd worked their leads and gotten nothing when a rookie came in and pulled 7 deals out of it. How can we add value back to you? Like people watching this, is it, hit you up on Instagram, bring you deals in your market? What can we do for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the big question. If you want to follow my investor Instagram, it's at Mike_invests. And it's not. We do some of our stuff in the trenches right now. I'm working on doing some more stuff here in the new year, as we're have our acquisitions manager helping run the business now. I'm going to have more time to focus on that. So give me a follow there. You can kind of see some of the landlordy stuff we do and some of the deals that we're pulling. And besides that, yeah, if anybody has any connections or wants to meet up in Eastern Washington or Northern Idaho, that's where we're based. I'm always looking to network with new investors. And yeah, I mean, I love to even though we get reached out to by a lot of people, I'm more than happy to chat with new people about everything that we have going on, and sort of how to get started. Because, I mean, beginning of the year, we were still trying to bust out the MLS, and we had 8 properties. And now coming into the end of this year, I mean, we have a full-fledged marketing machine, and we're going to be maybe at 30 doors. We're at 1 away from 30 doors. So
That's
not
awesome.
not a bad 2020.
I would say you're going to be at 30. I think I would make that your goal by the end of the year. You got to get at least one more.
Man, I need to. I can't be sitting on like a prime number. My engineering brain is gonna
like
gonna
29.
freak out. 29. I can't do that. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate you hopping on and joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan.
If you're like a lot of investors, I know it's really easy to sell yourself on why deals aren't panning out or why sellers aren't going to matter, and even do kind of like what Mike did, mark them as dead and let them sit for 30, 60, 90 days. This is one of those things that it really does take more time as well as more effort than we initially estimate when we set out. So if you don't have the time or the energy, or you're selling yourself on why deals aren't panning out, you probably don't need more leads. You need to get your conversions dialed in, and maybe it makes sense for you to hire an acquisitions manager like Mike did. I've been told that if I don't ask you guys to subscribe, you won't, so please, please.